So it's just after 1500 GMT, and we start in Brussels, where European interior ministers are holding an emergency meeting to address the migration crisis. Now, figures from the European Border and Coast Guard Agency show that more than 280,000 asylum seekers and migrants arrived in Europe this year. There are two main routes, from the south and from the east. The southern route looks like this. Many leave from Libya and from Tunisia, and they cross the Mediterranean to Italy or to Malta. Others leave from eastern Morocco to reach the Spanish mainland, while some will journey from western Morocco to Spain's Canary Islands. The eastern route looks like this, from Belarus into eastern EU states, mainly Poland, and most people who attempt this journey are from Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. All right, let's speak to Dominic Kane in Brussels. Dominic, EU countries have a track record, have a history of trying to find an agreement on a comprehensive migration policy that would work for everybody, and they've had very limited success so far. What are you expecting today?
Well, one of the things to remember here is you have competing emotions, competing policy requirements from the 27 different member states. And so whilst they stress as much as possible the need for solidarity and coordinated action, what they really want to achieve, well, sometimes they're very different from each other. So certainly, insofar as those two routes of migration are concerned, insofar as the Balkan route, well, that's the overland route principally. Then there is the more central route through the Mediterranean. Well, that takes in Italy particularly, and that is where we see some degree of disagreement between the French government and the Italian government about the way forward. Certainly, in the course of the last few weeks, a bit of a diplomatic spat has emerged between the two countries about how the Italian government, under the newly elected Prime Minister Meloni, believes that the far-right agenda she has should be implemented. The French government disagrees completely, and so the words that they have with each other are not particularly warm. It's also worth making the point that the 20 measures, the 3 pillars of an action plan put forward by the EU Commission earlier this week, well, again, some people say that these are just warm words. They are, according to some NGOs, rehashing existing solutions which haven't worked. So there is not really a suggestion coming so far from Brussels that there, that there will be any definite breakthrough in this meeting. The feeling is that there may be something more substantial to come in December, when the leaders of member states come for the end-of-year summit.
All right, Dominic Kane in Brussels, thank you very much. Not greatly encouraging as far as today is concerned. The migrant route from northern France to the UK is well established, but many are now taking greater risks, as Natasha Butler explains from Dunkirk.
In recent years, what we've been seeing is an increase in asylum seekers using small boats, inflatables. These are run by people smugglers in order to reach Britain. The problem is, of course, those journeys across the English Channel are very dangerous, they are very risky, and that's why we saw that tragedy 1 year ago now, when that inflatable boat carrying at least 27 people sank in the sea, and those people died. Now, what the French and British governments have been trying to do in recent years is reduce the amount of people who are trying to take those dangerous crossings. They recently expanded an existing deal between the two countries, which would bolster security along this northern French coastline, more police patrols along the beaches, the use of more surveillance, drones, and also even British immigration officers stationed here in France and French immigration officers stationed in Britain. And things that haven't happened before. What charity workers are saying isn't necessarily more security. That's not necessarily going to dissuade people who really believe that they're going to have better opportunities in life if they reach the UK. Some of them have family there, some of them speak English, so naturally they feel more drawn to being in the UK than staying in some parts of Europe. Charity workers saying, look, what we need are these safe, legal routes in order for people to be able to have an opportunity, a chance to reach the UK without risking their lives and possibly drowning in the sea.
That's Natasha Butler there. Now let's bring in Christopher Hine in Rome. He's a professor of law and immigration policies at Lewis University. Christopher, the EU keeps being confronted with this question, right? How to deal with migrants and asylum seekers, and still there's no common policy. Why not?
Well, Already in September 2020, the European Commission came forward with a very comprehensive so-called new plan for migration and asylum policies with a number of legislative proposals. Of the whole package, only one thing has been approved up to now in all this period, and this is the establishment of the EU Asylum Agency in Malta. For all the rest, there is still a conflict between the member states, between the Council and the European Parliament, and I do not see at this moment any way out of this impasse where nobody knows really where to go. Also in front of divergent opinions in the different parts of the European Union. Take on the one hand the Visegrad states, in particular Hungary, Poland, but also Czech Republic. On the other hand, you have the Mediterranean 5 states, Cyprus, Greece, Malta, Spain, and Italy, who demand a great distribution, solidarity with all the other member states of the Union, in particular for those who are arriving by boat. Only in Italy, more than 94,000 people have arrived as from the beginning of this year. And those who have been transferred to other member states up to now is a few hundred. So this is, of course, a disappointment also in the public opinion that nothing is really moving. And when we speak about the Council meeting of Ministers of Interior and Justice today, I do not see for the moment any light on the tunnel.
So do you think this is an issue where an agreement will not be found at the EU level? And we've seen this before. And perhaps this is an issue where, on the contrary, we're going to see these temporary piecemeal deals with just a smaller group of countries that can find some kind of common ground.
That's exact. Already in June this year, there has been a sort of agreement, not binding, but voluntary, for redistribution of asylum seekers and migrants arriving at the Mediterranean. Up to now, there are 22 states part of this agreement, but only 2, Germany and France, have really taken action. But I repeat, on a very low level. So I believe this is the right direction anyhow, that to together to get those willing member states, a group of those who go forward and leaving behind all the others.
And meanwhile, the frontline countries, that's to say the countries where most migrants and asylum seekers arrive, as we showed at the top of the show, they say they're dealing with this on behalf of everyone else in the EU and that they get very little help. Is that fair? Is that accurate?
That is not so fair. Take the case of Italy. In Italy, it's the 4th place after Germany, France, and Spain with regard to numbers of asylum seekers. But it is true that many people arrive at the shores of Italy, in particular in Sicily, but most of them then move forward irregularly to other European countries. So they do not remain here. There's not really that burden that the Mediterranean states are claiming.
Christopher Hein, thank you very much for joining us from Rome. We appreciate it.